Tulsa time.
Hello, friends. Welcome again to our 100th episode of Tulsa Time today. I'm Bishop David Condrela, and I have with me our Vicar General, Father Gary Castle. Welcome again.
Thank you.
100 episodes. We were trying to remember. We think we started something like 2.5, 3 years ago. And we started in a very simple way, just in the house, and have evolved over the years. We built this studio for the use of a number of different things here at the Chancery, and for groups even to come in and use if they want. Carlo, films his Catholic Answers show here in the studio. We have Tulsa Time. I'm not sure what all else uses it. But 100 episodes. It's been fun and hopefully informative and useful. We started it largely to provide an opportunity for me to interact with people, or at least people to see me and hear me speak about more than just when I'm at their parish and I'm preaching on whichever gospel of the Sunday, but to be able to broaden the kinds of issues and the circumstances in which I might be speaking about things. And so I've enjoyed that. We think we have about 150 or so people that generally either watch the episode or, download it onto audio and listen in the car. Whenever I do podcasts, I don't watch them. I listen in the car, even on YouTube.
Well, I was wondering if we looked at the download list, if you were the top downloader of your own.
Yeah. I have to admit that I actually have not listened to
Well, I think it's sometimes hard to listen to our own voices, on recordings. So,
well, because when I'm recorded, I have a twang.
Oh,
that I'm sure is not there normally. But the recording equipment.
That's right. It does it to you, right?
The recording equipment makes me sound like I have a twang. Yeah.
So we look back on the 100 episodes. What were some of your favorite topics?
Well, we were commenting earlier. We were talking with Daniel that we have this steady average, 150 or so downloads. But when we waded into the topic of the same-sex blessings back when Pope Francis released a document outlining a way in which the church might recognize people, or at least offer a blessing to people, even though they were in a same-sex relationship. Trying to thread the needle between not blessing same-sex relationships, which cannot be blessed, but at the same time being able to at least offer a blessing or some consolation from the church to a person who is at this point in their life living in such a relationship. So we talked a little about that, and oh boy, that
numbers spiked.
Yeah, that caught a lot of interest. So it's sort of a proof of something that I'm adamantly opposed to, which is the idea that all the biggest negative things and the most controversial things are the things that get the most attention.
Right.
But in our lives, we hope that our lives are not filled with controversies, and that our lives are generally filled with peace and consolation with some controversies. And so why would we want to bring a lot of other negativity into our lives if we don't have some specific reason that we need to? So we have not, we could easily,
pick all the hot button
we
issues.
could look on The Pillar, or we could look on LifeSite News, or we could look on whatever, on the one hand, National Catholic Reporter, on the other hand, the Catholic Register. We could look on different sites and see what are people stirred up about and focus on those things and have lots of people tuning in. But then we would just be feeding into the same maelstrom that goes on online all the time. And so I didn't want to do that. So we haven't done that.
Which I think has been the kind of the nature of of your work is, to your point, talking about ordinary things in ordinary circumstances on a consistent basis, which for people who I know who listen to Tulsa Time have appreciated that, that there's constant access to kind of you as the chief shepherd of the diocese, providing perspective, providing formation, providing humor, kind of seeing a human side of you kind of come out, in these as well. So I think they've been great.
Yeah. And so thank you to all who have tuned in and who have enjoyed spending time with this podcast. And as we always do, we'll read the readings for the coming Mass as we approach the first Sunday of Advent and do a little reflecting on them.
All right. So we'll take the first reading today from the prophet Isaiah chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. This is what Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest mountain and raised above the hills. All nations shall stream toward it. Many people shall come and say, "Come, let us climb the Lord's mountain to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may instruct us in his ways, and we may walk in his paths. For from Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and impose terms on many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. One nation shall not raise the sword against another, nor shall they train for war again. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord." So it's kind of a milestone episode with 100 episodes today, but you could liken it to the first Sunday of Advent being a milestone of moving into that which is new, the first Sunday of the new liturgical year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now also the end to the year of hope.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So with the feast day of Christ the King, we brought to an end the Year of Hope Jubilee year, which has been a lot of fun with all the different Jubilee Masses each first Saturday of each month. We've had just a great time with that. And Advent for me, I love Advent and I love Lent. I love both seasons. And part of what I love about Advent is the little blue breviary. That's very strange and awfully specific. But for whatever set of reasons, of course, some of it has to do with the scriptures and the Psalms that are used. We get into the prophets. It's the birth of the Savior, Christmas. But also that blue breviary, we're talking about the 4-volume breviary. In the 4-volume breviary, the first volume, at least in the publisher that I have, has a blue cover. And it's thin, it's small, diminutive. And I always have just really liked when we get to that and move into that.
Absolutely.
And so we begin to look, we've been looking at the last things, the theme of the last things as we come to the end of the year, but also that bleeds into Advent. Advent is a time of expectation because some things are ending, the age before the Christ arrival, and now the new thing is beginning. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. So we also hear from Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage up to the day that Noah entered the ark. They did not know until the flood came and carried them all away. So it will be also at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be out in the field. One will be taken, and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken, and one will be left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on which day your Lord will come. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour of night when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not let his house be broken into. So too you also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come. So the theme of Advent, and to some degree Lent, is an apocalyptic theme. We have movies that have apocalyptic themes, like Apocalypse Now. That was a Vietnam movie, war movie. And we tend to be terrified about apocalypse and apocalyptic themes because something gets destroyed. But it's important for us to remember we live our lives in the hope that we will go to heaven. In order for that to happen, this life has to be destroyed. This life comes to an end, and we then move into the life of heaven. What the gospel refers to here is when the Lord comes at the end and everything comes to an end. That's the apocalypse. On the other hand, while everything comes to an end, the new life of heaven begins in its fullness. So it's not something for us to be terrified of. Sin is something to be terrified of.
Absolutely.
Right? Separation from God, living our lives in a distracted way such that we miss the signs. Now, when we talk about signs, people tend to think in terms of what will happen that will allow us to recognize that it's about to happen. And that's not what we really mean in terms of the scriptures. The signs of the return of the Lord are in our life every day. Did I pray today? Did I even think about praying today? Is it on my mind that I have a relationship with the living God such that I would pray on any given day? That's one of the signs, you could say. Have I caused violence in the world, or have I brought peace in the world today? That's a sign. So there are things like that. It's those kinds of things. They have to do with helping us to examine what is the quality of our relationship with God.
I think as you started today, we kind of just talked about your decision to not always choose the hot button issues, because I think by nature we like to focus on the apocalyptic events of our lives, and I think that again takes us away from this deep interior kind of spiritual watchfulness. Is if we're always focusing on the tragedy that are befalling us, or always fixating on when is Christ coming again, it takes our eye off of the true spiritual work, which is growing in our intimacy with the Lord each day. So whether he comes today or tomorrow or a week from now, or our life ends in 50 more years, so what? Living in the moment with that spiritual watchfulness is, I think, is key, to the spiritual life.
We were talking earlier today about exercise and getting exercise. And so, if a person has in their mind the image of running through the tape, winning the New York Marathon and running through the tape, if you try to just do that, you don't have a lot of time for accomplishing that. So you're just going to sign up and do that. You won't.
You won't make it.
You'll die. You'll break your legs. You'll burst your heart. Whatever will happen. That image of winning the New York Marathon comes by a daily discipline of diet and a regimen of exercise and practice runs and all kinds of things that are not catchy, not eye-catching and not explosive and not something you're going to write home about. But if those things aren't there, you don't get to that. You don't get to the ribbon. And so, that's an image. Paul even uses the image of the race, right, in his letters. That's the image for us of our spiritual life with God. And what Advent is wanting to draw us back to is to say, okay, look, it's a new beginning. How are things going? Christ is coming. How are you preparing?
Well, as a society, we tend to make New Year's resolutions on, January 1st, which normally lasts about a week, but you could say as the new liturgical year comes in this, invitation to be ready, to be watchful, to be awake is a great time for us to, really evaluate, how are we doing in our spiritual lives and where do we need to make the adjustments and changes? Because I think sometimes we can fall into the rut of praying the same way throughout our entire life, but there are so many circumstances in our life that change, and so are we reevaluating the way we are praying and the fruit of our prayer on a consistent basis as a way to be watchful and to be ready.
Yeah, the Lent and Advent have that in common, this idea of resolutions. And I think that if we would make very modest resolutions, we would be much more successful, because nobody likes to do things that they don't do well. What we like to do are things that we do well. And so if you make resolutions that are so completely different than what you're doing now, you may have a hard time accomplishing that.
Right.
But if you make resolutions that are a progression of what you're doing now, remembering that this is a grace, it's not something we simply do on our own. We don't just decide to be with God. God has already invited us, so we've already received an invitation, a grace. That's really what apocalypse is, if you think about that. The coming of an apocalypse, of the end of the age, of the definitive end of everything that is material, is frightening for material beings, but it's also an invitation because it marks the beginning of heaven, and so we're invited to go there.
Absolutely. So when you think about some concrete things that we might do during Advent, to kind of honor this liturgical season, and I'm intentional about saying the liturgical season because it's not Christmas yet.
Yeah.
And there's a tension that exists in these 4 weeks, that almost but not yet. And so are we already living Christmas, or are we living Advent? And so how do we enter into and live Advent? Well, this penitential season that's a little bit more warm and fuzzy than Lent, but still a season of preparation. What are your thoughts on some Advent practices?
Well, I think probably most people saw that even before October arrived, we had Halloween out at Home Depot and so forth.
I saw my first Christmas decorations of the second week of September.
Okay, so that's already happened too. So that is interesting to recognize. We do live in a world that is commercial. This is not a critique, it's just the reality. And the cycle of the commercial season begins much sooner. And so it wants to rapidly take us to Christmas. But for us as Catholics especially, to use the Advent season to be calm, to be quiet, to try to bring a little more silence into our lives, into the family, and to be thinking about the meaning of Christmas, not just the commercial aspect of Christmas, but what it means that Jesus became man, took on flesh, and became one of us, as a way of getting ready to celebrate Christmas as a reality and as a part of our life. So I don't like for people to get negative and down on people who've already got their Christmas tree up and all that. Better is for us to live Advent ourselves and be witnesses and models that way, than to get too Grinch.
Because the truth is, you may choose not to put your Christmas tree up until Christmas Day, but you've done zero spiritual work in the season of Advent, but yet externally you're observing the season, know, and I think that's always, again, another tension piece within ourselves is like, does the outward reality reflect what's going on internally? And Now we put our Christmas decorations up at the cathedral a little bit earlier just because we have so many events, but I call them winter decorations until Christmas, and then they become Christmas decorations in the season of Advent.
Exactly. And I think that particularly with children, if you have an activity of some kind that you can do each day.
Like the Jesse tree, the Advent wreath, particular conversations around the dinner table about the meaning and the purpose of preparing, how we prepare.
And you see these little devices, there's various kinds of them, where you open a little door or something each day, a new little door or something. When we had the women's conference a few weeks ago in Tulsa, there was a vendor there who were former students of mine at Texas A&M, and they have several children now, and they were selling a rosary blanket that they have come up with. And basically it's just it's a fuzzy blanket, that you put on the floor. It has an image of the Blessed Virgin and an image of the beads of the rosary. And the way they came up with this was that they noted that it was difficult to get their little toddler children to not be all distracted and roaming all over the room and so forth as they're trying to pray the rosary as a family. And so they drew out a rosary on a blanket, and they used these little electronic candles.
Oh, wow.
And so they set it all up, put a candle on each bead. The kids all get around, they get their rosary, and then the kids take turns after they pray the Hail Mary. One of the kids takes the candle up to the statue that they have in the house and puts the candle at the feet of the statue, and then they pray the next Hail Mary. And so it keeps the kids focused because they've got something to do.
Yeah.
And so I think similarly with the Advent season, my mother used to put out a small creche, a small crib for the baby Jesus, and next to it a little basket of straw. And every day we were supposed to put a piece of straw in the crib for all the good deeds we did that day.
Oh, nice.
And hopefully we did enough good deeds during the season of Advent that poor baby Jesus was not resting on a bare crib. But it was fun. It gave us something to do, something to think about, something to focus our attention, at least for 5 minutes, while we did whatever the good deed was.
That's a good point. I think the kinesthetic experience kind of helps drive home the teaching or the reality.
That's a big part of the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, right?
Yeah,
that's
the manipulables to help kids understand the scriptures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Advent, the Advent wreath, things change at Mass, no Gloria. Mass becomes shorter then, unless your pastor preaches too long, and then it doesn't change.
Well, just as Advent begins the new church year, this episode can begin a new chapter in the Tulsa Times service of the Diocese. And so any final thoughts on where we might go with Tulsa Time or
Well, we are anticipating finalizing some work here in the studio so that we get our table back, because I liked having that table. And the thing that I would say, relating Tulsa Time to what we're talking about, is that the internet by itself and social media by itself are not a problem. It's how we use them. And so hopefully this is one of the kinds of things that we can do with them that allow us to use the internet and social media in such a way that it builds up our faith. So the more that we do that, and that we don't fall into kind of doom scrolling and distracted attention getting devices and so forth, the better off we'll be spiritually.
Well, that's also, one of the reasons why the diocese has signed up with Hallow, to make Hallow more available for all Catholics in the Diocese of Tulsa, or any person who would want to listen to Hallow in the Diocese. We're going to be launching some different prayer campaigns through our diocesan account, and then all the parishes in the diocese have access to it now as well. And as soon as they get 50 people like their page, they're able to open up a community page for each of our parishes. And so I think many good ways in which we're trying to use technology for the benefit of evangelization in the diocese.
And also for the schools, right? They can also
All of our schools have
They can
Hallow
get-
for their teachers and their students as well,
That's excellent.
families.
Well, we want to wish everyone a wonderful Advent and a rich season as we grow in the love of the Lord. So thank you all for attending to Tulsa Time today.
Thank you.